commercial property seekers are still doing well during COVID-19. Tell me what they're doing.
Yeah, commercial property is very interesting at the moment. On one hand, we do have the rural and agribusiness doing really well. Lots and lots of buyers out there looking to buy farms around Australia. On the other side, we are still trying to determine the exact fallout for shopping centres and office buildings. So shopping centres have been hit with a lot of store closures. It is very uncertain as to whether people will return to shopping in the same way that they did prior to COVID-19. And then office buildings, that a lot of companies are getting used to people working from home. We're a bit unsure as to how many people will return, and there is going to be a lot of negotiating taking place once people return to work in terms of the amount of office space companies will require.
Now, a Canberra property market is holding up better than anywhere else in Australia at the moment.
Yeah, Canberra's doing really well. And it's been interesting looking at data on a city-by-city basis. And, you know, with property, it's always so diverse across property types and always locations. So Canberra has been doing pretty well. A lot of it off the back of all that government employment. So 42% of people employed in Canberra are in government. If you look at the amount of employment that hangs off that government employment, it would be even more significant. So for now, all those extra people for the tax office, for Centrelink, Department of Health, it does seem to be propping up commercial property there and also residential as well.
Where are we with first home buyers? Like the world, you know, is in a very different place, but we're still seeing quite a bit of interest from first home buyers.
Yeah, first home buyers are very active at the moment, and you know, I think it's surprising for a lot of us to look at what's happening with first home buyers compared to investors. So investor activity is very low at the moment. It started to pick up prior to COVID-19, but they really haven't come back to a large extent. Offshore buyers are very inactive, not surprisingly, but first home buyers have been buoyed by the 5% deposit scheme. There's a lot of state-based schemes that have been extended. Most recently in regional Victoria, there's some extra money available for people looking to build new. And as a result, we have seen continued pick-up in inquiry. What's quite interesting with first home buyers in Melbourne, for example, is that it does look like a lot of renters are now converting to first home buyers. So some locations where there's very high proportions of renters, such as Melbourne CBD, we are starting to see a very big pickup in first home buyer inquiry in that area.
Nerida, what about the apartments in the big capital cities? How big a drama is this, and how big a drama do you think it's going to be going into the future? Seeing what we're seeing with the world at the moment, is there a real oversupply?
Yeah, that is the big unknown at this point, and apartments in particular new apartments in particular is the one area that will take the longest to recover. If we have a look at the Australian Construction Industry Forum latest forecasts, they are predicting that things will start to get better on a worst case scenario in around 2022, but it will primarily be house and land that picks up. Apartments will take a bit longer. The problem with apartments is that most apartments in Australia are purchased by investors. Investor activity, as I mentioned before, is still very, very low. We've got a situation of declining rents, which is obviously very bad for investors as well. And the outlook for apartment price growth in some locations isn't great. So, you know, when we have a look at the established housing market, we are seeing houses in many suburbs see quite stable pricing, but if you go out to parts of Western Sydney and southwestern Sydney, houses are going okay, but those areas that have had enormous levels of apartment development seem to be doing far less well than established housing.
And a lot of people in the real estate industry getting happier, obviously, with auctions, you know, normalising a little around the country.
Yeah, auction activity is returning to normal. So we did see those pretty incredible clearance rates last weekend. The weekend before, Melbourne was still doing online auctions. Sydney was already doing live auctions. So 70% plus clearance rates. It does show that online auctions weren't a great way to sell. I mean, when we were looking at online auction clearance rates, they were hovering sort of around the 30 to 40% many weeks. But it does look like the industry, it does look like buyers, you know, are back. We can certainly see it through search and inquiry. The fact that we're seeing these high clearance rates is very positive. The problem at the moment, though, is lack of listings. So at this stage, we are starting to see a pickup in people inquiring, of sellers inquiring, and that's good news. You know, when we, on one hand, it's good to see price growth, but if people aren't selling, you know, that's the big negative for the industry. So the fact we're seeing this pickup in seller leads on realestate.com.au is very positive.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nerida. We'll catch up again next weekend.